Hey, what's up everybody? I hope you're enjoying the month of romance. Unless you're doing Single Awareness Day, which probably stings for a lot of you. So as usual, I always explain what this is for anybody who's new with the channel. I basically look back at a lot of my older works and I commentate on them and debate on whether or not they've aged well from my own experience and deliver my own personal background behind it and kind of explain some things of whatever the hell it was I was thinking of, what my intentions were. I think you can kind of get the drill based on the title alone. So since this is February, which is the month for romance and love and everything, I figured it would be appropriate to tackle in one of my more popular videos, that of which being the Hearts and Hooves Day review with Keyframe and I. This was one of the most ambitious type of videos that I put together. It turned into a bit of a passion project when she and I were writing the script together, and for the most part I think it's aged fairly well. It's got a couple of flaws here and there. In fact, when it was out, a lot of people were very critical about the video, but I think a lot of those criticisms kind of shrugged off a little, in which I'll explain later on as we go over the video itself. It's still something that I'm kind of proud of, but there are some things in which some people were asking questions about what the hell I was thinking of. Most of you already know what it is, so let's go ahead and just dive right in. Now, before diving in, there's two things to point out too. Firstly, as usual, there has been some copywritten music used in here, and once again, do not use copyrighted songs. As this is being shown, I'm going to be scraping out whatever music was being used. I will let you know. Secondly, I decided it was best to use the remastered version, which is both two videos into one, because I didn't want to go to the trouble of finding two separate videos and going through an inconvenient effort and just making things a little awkward for you guys. This way, it's a lot more consistent for you. I think you get the drill here, so let's go ahead and begin.
She likes me. She likes me not. She likes me. She likes me not. She likes me. I don't know how to respond.
Alright, so I'm going to pause right here. So, in the original cut, there was actually some kind of text, some kind of quote that I put there. And it's a thing that I like to do in a lot of my videos if I feel there's personal weight attached to it. I don't know how well that idea has aged. Honestly, I still like the idea. I think I should put it to much better use instead of just putting it on a video that I think, oh, this has some personal weight to it. Some people didn't really complain about that. I'm not exactly sure if anybody took issue with it. Personally, I like the idea. This was obviously a replacement right there, the pink tinted channel logo that's become a standard now for my channel. Every video that I upload, I always put the logo opening there. And this one, I wanted to utilize it and use my imagination to make this one stand out a little differently. So just wanted to point that out there.
How to respond to this. The episode when she's here, just... What if this gets too ugly? Because
sometimes the leg placements, the front legs are a little weirdly put in. There's Keyframe in that green dress.
Holy shit.
What? Do I not look good?
Huh? Okay, Ellie told you to wear that.
The wing boner joke.
Yeah, she did. How'd you know?
I just know. You don't need to wear that.
What? Do you want me to take it off?
So I'm going to go ahead and pause right here. I'm going to get this one major thing out of the way because a couple of people commented over this, and that is the coloration of the blush line over my character's face. There really is no proper explanation other than I thought blue was a little more appropriate to emphasize on the idea on how much of a bigger blush it is. If I try to go for something much more redder or much pinker or a slightly different shade of it, I didn't think it would have as much of an effect. I didn't want to go for green because that indicates he's being sick. Yellow doesn't really indicate much of anything. So blue, I think it's more the lines that it's taken his breath away. Basically, I just wanted to find a different color that seemed closely related to red in order to try to create some kind of emphasis there. So I don't have a clear explanation on that part. The other, which is the wing boner joke, I did decide to downplay it over time because I didn't want that to be a constant one-note trait of my character and whatever it is he's doing. I didn't want to create like ongoing jokes to just become a single thing, like, oh yeah, he's known for just this or he's just for that. But the other part of which that I'm actually very proud of is making that vector of Keyframe in that sparkly green dress. She looks absolutely gorgeous in that. I had a lot of fun doing it. I wanted to make sure that the dress would sparkle something well. Her favorite colors are either blue or green, so I decided to go with that. And I also thank Silver Quill for lending me his vector assets, so that way I can actually edit them in and use my own imagination in that regard. So let's go ahead and continue.
Ellie planned this too much.
Are you okay?
Also, yes, the
Do this. I can go.
the mentioning of Ellie has been.
Best that we get to the episode.
Whatever.
I'm going to go ahead and pause right here. Yes, this was a reference to the Testing 1, 2, 3 review with Eliora, in which I'm not too happy with. I think that review didn't age very well. It was very, very rushed. But I like that this is playing up that she knows about my character and what gets him to have, you know, these alleged wing boners. Which, again, I've already talked about. I decided to just downplay it to the point where it almost doesn't exist. I think I dropped it. That was not my intention, but let's continue.
Whatever you say, Captain.
Greetings to you all. I am GoldenFox.
And I'm Keyframe. And I, or should I say we, are going to look at point A, point B, and everything in between about Hearts and Hooves Day.
I could see a few little like changes in the vector design right there. All right, so this part is cut out. You would normally hear Van Halen's Hot Teacher, which is a song that I definitely wanted to use ever since it used to be a thing when I would use like a song in the opening to show which episode I'm reviewing. So, yeah. I like the idea, but eventually I got hit with a copyright claim. So, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right here. This is actually a personal gripe that I have, and I kind of beat myself up over. Trying to go through for the specifics at the bottom of the screen, where you see where it says Season 2, Episode 17. At one point, I decided to just completely cancel that when I did my later reviews, including, I think it was Magic Sheep, and I'll probably think of a few other ones, but basically, it started to get a little annoying for some people. It's like, it fills up the screen, it kind of takes away the composition and everything. It's just slap on that text on there, it just becomes a little disorienting. The other which you'll notice is that my character is on the left side of the screen, whereas Keyframe is on the right. And a part of that is because, like, normally my character's on the right side, but I put Keyframe there because the design the character has is based off of the different angles. And that's this angle, and the other angle, the hairstyle, is based on the angle. It's at a different approach. And I like this angle where the mane or the hair is like curving downward. It's a cute side of it. But something of which, like, some people would say, like, why don't you just reverse the picture and such? I think that's just out of disrespect of the character design, and I want it to be consistent with what her angle is. So I decided to switch it around and put my character on the left and Keyframe on the right. So that's just an additional note there.
Well, this is your channel, Mr. Fox. Why not start this out?
Well, before doing so, I should first elaborate on two things. First off, just because I don't like the episode doesn't mean I'm calling it a bad episode. Some people have taken this at the wrong angle of whether they like something or not to debating what's good or bad. Saying what they like or not is subjective, and saying what's good or bad is being objective. I bring this up because the elements of what's liked or not in this episode have been so controversial from many viewers. It's been hard for me to find the middle ground. The second thing I want to mention is, if you haven't noticed in my reviews of Simple Ways and Equestria games, I utterly hate cringe comedy. It's something I never appreciated from
So I'm going to pause it right here. The whole like subjective and objective thing, it wasn't really talked about nearly as often, nor was it taken accountable, or at least from my perspective, back in like 2014 when I was working on this. No, this was out in 2015, but we were working on it during late 2014. But the whole idea behind how you feel about an episode compared to the objective merits behind it, this is just based off of the fact that a lot of our own personal feelings dictate much more. And there's no proper balance, in which I would later start to take this into account. And even then, I still need to, I still come across making that kind of mistake. Nowadays, you look at that and most people just think, well, no shit, of course there's a difference between subjective and objective. So I wanted to point that out there, that things were kind of different at the time. The other part of which to point out too is that yes, I still don't like cringe comedy because Obviously, the idea behind, oh, it's supposed to make you cringe, I think it's incredibly counterproductive to when you're supposed to engage your audience. Making somebody cover their face and turn them away and just feel utterly embarrassed, it's a very uncomfortable scenario, and I don't think any viewer should have to go through that kind of bullshit. However, some people, they can love cringe comedy, and even to this day, I still have a hard time trying to grasp the idea or its appeal, even in this very video after Keyframe explained her side. I guess it's to each of their own, so let's continue.
We need to get into this lovely slice of controversy pie. I wonder if it's apple or cherry flavored.
You seem pretty imaginative and hungry, I suppose. Anyways, this episode begins when the Cutie Mark Crusaders are designing...
So I'm going to pause it here. I think it's hilarious now, remembering that she talked about this controversy pie and everything. I didn't realize it until, like, a while later when I made the Magic Shape review. I talked about what pie flavor I like before the review starts. It's definitely, like, a compliment looking back at those two. I think that's hilarious. Anyways, here we go with the summary.
Designing a huge heart card for Miss Chair Lee.
One of the reasons I picked to do this review at you.
Come now?
Sorry, it's nothing.
No. Tell me.
Well, this episode is the perfect episode to do a balanced review, like we're doing now. Every episode has differing opinions, but a good chunk of the time there is usually a majority vote on whether what's good or bad. This episode is polarizing, to say the least. It all depends on your view or perception of comedy, romance, Valentine's Day specials, and on top of all that, having the protagonist in this episode with this type of topic being naive children. I don't know. I'm probably not making any sense here, aren't I?
No, it's fitting here for the theme and topic of this review. Proceeding on,
So yeah, that was obviously for theatrical purposes right there. But she does have a good point that whenever it comes to... I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. So... she does have a good point that when it comes to doing a collab, it's better off that you want to find somebody who has a different opinion to help balance everything out and let the viewer debate themselves instead of having one side or another. It becomes a little too biased and it can throw some people off. Not to say that having, multiple people or having a collab weigh in on the positive or the negative instead of having a diverse conversation is a bad thing, but it does make a lot of sense for what a collab does. Collabs are mostly meant to be for fun, and this one, it actually has a good balance between the sense of fun behind it and having a sense of diversity. So, let's continue. Yes, the bouncing, the CMC heads. That used to be incredibly memed.
We did it, girls, we found the one that will send our teachers heart a flutter.
You're beautiful.
Huh?
I mean, your voice is beautiful. I mean, look, episode.
Wait, are you talking about my brother?
Yeah, what would Applejack say on behalf of this Apple Bloom?
Probably get out the Valentine shotgun.
I can only imagine.
Okay, that was actually pretty funny. But yeah, just adding in those little moments where my character is like, he's completely just letting it out that, yeah, he likes Keyframe. It plays throughout the entire review, and yet his oblivious nature, I think it's what makes it more hilarious. Let's continue.
From this point on, they try to get the two together in a picnic setup. As obvious, it doesn't work.
Well, you can't really blame the CMC for trying.
Okay, so this is another one of those moments that I think were still hilarious.
Beautiful sunset, the magenta sky, as they lean into each other with the mood just right to hear those three special words. I mean, it's all cliched as all high heaven, but what are you doing?
I don't know. I was just thinking
Alright.
I'm gonna pause right here. So, this was a certain effect that I had to do when using Vegas, and that is I had to render like the frame set up just on its own where the two of them are still sitting there so that way I could create the zoom in effect. And the advantage that I had is that the background was just a gradient background, and that said gradient background did not have any effect on wherever the characters were. So this was an opportunity to create a zoom in effect without making it look too distorted. Part of which I feel it did, and I've noticed that when it comes to using keyframes vectors, there's a sense of blurriness because the file size or the resolution size was a little bit on the small side. I took this as a future reference that whenever I go to make any vectors involved, I want to try to make them as big as I can. You know, with whatever assets that I have, so that way it doesn't it looks sharp enough to where it just fits properly and it doesn't go out of distortion. But that moment right there, I love that. Just zooming it in and she's talking about everything, and off screen, my character's coming in for the close kissing effect.
That's totally why your eyes were shut and your lips were puckered.
Okay, that was funny.
Agreed.
That actually is still pretty funny. Again, you know, that kind of clip right there where Sweetie Belle appears in the background, oh, come on, is still used as a hilarious form of response in whether they're Twitter feeds or it's replying to a YouTube comment. It's still funny as hell.
So after that failed attempt, they tried to come up with another plan. Hell bent on having these two together.
I like that the bows are aiming downward along with her ears.
Twilight bumps into them, and we get a backstory of the holiday. Don't you find it strange that this potion is heavily based around components only Pegasi can create and obtain?
Actually, if you think about it, it's been said that Princess Cadence, the one for love spells, was also a Pegasus before becoming an alicorn.
That was just speculation.
Guess you Pegasi are just the romantic types.
Please don't get on my weak side.
So her randomly appearing on that side of the screen, I wanted to implement a little bit of her own Pinkie Pie sort of feel to it, because Pinkie Pie is her favorite character in the show, and seeing that she would just appear from one side to the other was a part of Pinkie's trait. So I wanted to implement that in a spiritual sort of sense, but also play it up comedically here. Let's continue.
Seemingly, the CMC get Charlie and Big Mac to drink the potion, and already it starts to take effect.
But then...
And here comes the most controversial part of the review. Or episode.
What are you doing?
Saving my sanity by skipping the worst part of the episode.
Are you kidding? This is the best part of the episode.
What? How can you stand hearing them spew all this bullshit out of their mouths?
Because I enjoy cringe comedy. However, cringe humor can be done wrong. And when it's done wrong or right is a matter of opinion, like all forms of comedy. Maybe you see why I like it now, Foxy?
I just noticed there's a little bit of a cut somewhere around her torso. I can't believe I overlooked that. But I could see where a lot of people come from when it comes to what cringe comedy is. But even when the characters are being expressive, it's still the very thought that we're still watching this character embarrass themselves. I guess that's just more adding on to just why I just don't enjoy it. So anyway, let's proceed.
I can see where you're coming from, but I just can't see it that way. An intentionally cringing moment for me is still a cringing moment for me. It's like Dory in Finding Nemo. Almost half the time, she embarrasses herself with various attempts. Similarly, this is the same issue I have with characters in general who embarrass themselves, and yet people like that character.
Okay, so bringing in Dory from Finding Nemo was a bit of an absurd idea, and this is mainly because I'm just not a big fan of the movie. I especially thought that Dory was incredibly obnoxious in Finding Nemo, because even though she's highly animated, she's also very I just thought she was just obnoxious. Every time she would speak or say something, it's more like, it just felt like a plot convenience where Marlin had to figure more things out on his own in order to actually find Nemo. She does become more productive throughout the movie, but at the end of the day, she just didn't do well for me. So I think this is just me shoehorning in that, hey, I don't like Dory and how animated and cringy she is. And this point did not age too well. A lot of people like Dory, and I guess, again, this is just each their own. So what we're going to follow here is a bit of a theatrical side of the story, and how the two of the characters range from bickering to kind of just having a calm scenario. Personally, when I was writing the script, when she and I were working on the script together, I got a little carried away and argumentative over the cringe comedy, and we had to sort out a few things where my attitude needed to be straightened out. And that was one of my downsides behind production, saying that, oh, I have a better standard or something, and that was just incredibly insulting on my part. So, or it's something that I had to come down to. So we kind of played up this act here to try to balance it out so that way we don't bicker at each other. But it was a very well done moment for us to continue on with the review. Let's continue.
And I'm glad you can somewhat see where I'm coming from. See, Dory, like you said, did embarrass herself. But look deeper into it. She acts the way she does because she lacks friends, family, feels so alone. She embarrasses herself because that gets attention. The only way she knows how. I relate to that in a sense, and how despite her embarrassment, she uses it not just to make others happy, but herself too. Cringe comedy can make someone uncomfortable, but maybe that's just what needs to happen sometimes to look more into a character and be happy you're not going through what they're going through. Isn't as deep here as it is with Dory? No, not at all. But it does provide the CMC to feel guilt, and that love that isn't true is uncomfortable for everyone around. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on. I'm being unprofessional.
No.
Okay, so how it kind of starts out, it was a little, not necessarily shoehorned, but it felt like we needed to throw something in there to create this moment between the two. I still like where it was going. I just felt like it wasn't smoothly transitioned to the debate. But then again, like earlier in the review, Key was still like a little unsure of whether or not she's doing the right thing, and I'm constantly there to comfort her. But let's continue with the scene.
You have no idea how carried away I've been throughout Season 4 in terms of unprofessionalism. I basically just hate the embarrassment of characters in general because it's just not a good feeling. I had a lot of it when I was a kid, and I don't want to experience it again as of now. Now I'm getting too personal.
No.
Okay, so yeah, there were things that I did when I was a kid in which, yeah, this was stupid. Why did I do that? Trying to apply that as a criticism to cringe comedy, I don't know how well that holds up. But again, let's proceed on.
No. I'm actually kind of honored that you'd be open with me like that. I understand how it feels to be embarrassed and hurt. More than you know. And that's why I can connect to these characters. I guess I feel a strange, maybe selfish comfort in knowing the embarrassment and pain that can ever come from anywhere isn't only afflicted on me. That just sounds stupid, doesn't it?
Why would you find that stupid? It's a matter of perspective. Now that you mention it, it would make sense for people like you to connect with cringe humor. I just don't connect with it.
Thank you for acknowledging my side. Even after all your bias against it, it means a lot.
Okay, so I think that was a good way to end the argument about cringe humor and how everybody has personal preference. Now, obviously, this is just a moment where the two of them are getting a little too carried away. Also, this part I decided to also mute as it's using Whitesnake's Is This Love?
Continue on with the review.
Yeah, we seem to be getting off too much. They find out that the only way to rid the spell is to keep them away from eye contact for an hour. Surely there are several other ways of keeping them away for a bit, right?
Oh yeah, I have a list right here.
Okay, yeah, I did forget to mention this before, but whenever it came to the additional moments to add in this remastered version, this part here where Keyframe's character uses her magic to lift up the scroll, this was part of the remastered version, and the other of which is the glowing pink tint when the two of our characters are becoming a little closer together. I hope I didn't miss anything else, but I thought this was a nice little idea because she said, oh yeah, I have a list here, and it wasn't in the original cut. I'm like, you know, I think that seems a little incoherent right there. So I decided to throw that in there, and I think this was I thought this was a really good option. And to make it even more hilarious is that while she's sitting there in front of the screen, she's like slowly backing away. And she drops the scroll.
They're just gonna get ready to get married.
Oh yeah. Real
I still
smart
think that
people
is
talk about
extremely
marriage. My only
counterproductive
idea
if
is
you're going to try to keep
them away.
if you're going to keep
Do
them
you have any idea
apart.
what would happen if your attempts to keep them separated for an hour screw up? Do you have a plan B? Ugh. I'm sorry. Just forget it. The script just told them to say so.
Well, they do
The script told them to say so.
Having them do separate tasks, big enough. Their minds clouded by the thoughts of what's worse to come rather than thinking.
Okay, so this is the other side of Keyframe that I was talking about, the different hairstyle, because it's supposed to be a consistent angle. I just noticed like there's like a line over the hair, over her horn. It's supposed to be the hairline, and it's going over it. That's just another goof up that I made, and I couldn't really do much else about it, even in the remastered version.
Than thinking clearly and logically like a normal adult.
Despite putting a huge risk on the line, I can take your word for that. Wait. I get that he's a farmer and he has a lot of strength, but how the hell is it that he can move a house and yet struggle to move a cake in a later episode?
Apologies to Josh.
In all seriousness, though, you do bring up a good topic.
A one-off
It does cause
gag.
A little bit of debate on the physical mutation properties of spells and potions.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a second. Some people have been commentating saying that in Mystery on the Friendship Express, when he was carrying the cake, he was trying to balance it. And while that is shown there, there was also an earlier shot in which I should have used where Applejack said out loud, "This cake is mighty heavy." And you see that Big Mac is just struggling just to keep on all four legs, which indicates, yeah, he's having trouble holding that, and yet he can just move a house without a single problem. The debate that Keyframe makes about how the love poison or potion creates like the magical properties, I think that's a little more debatable in a world where magic can just pretty much amount to anything.
Big Mac is strong like in Pinky Apple Pie, but struggles like in Mystery. And Cheerilee is shown to have massive strength as well in this episode. Something not even an Earth Pony can achieve.
Yeah, I noticed that recently. She's breaking through doors, she's busting down walls. I think that's hilarious.
It's entirely possible that the potion has a quality in it that increases a pony's adrenaline and dopamine levels, thus making them stronger, faster, and have more endurance. Why? Well, to achieve the potion's goal that was put inside the mind of the pony once it was consumed. It was seen on a much different level.
I love that transition where the character just slides off the screen.
All got more aggressive, stronger, faster.
It has that cartoony-ish sort of feel to it.
Just to get smarty pants. But that's just a theory. A pony theory. Thanks for watching. What? I like that channel.
Hey, I like this channel too. It opens food for thought on video games and such. And wait, we have an episode to finish, don't we? Fortunately, the two are separate in love.
So I'm going to pause that there. Yes, I used to enjoy watching MatPat's videos and the game theory. I've kind of grown very detached to it over the years, and it seemed more like he's just tackling on things for gimmicky sort of reasons. That kind of point address there hasn't really held up too much. My thoughts on MatPat changed over time. Like, I don't hate him like everybody else does. I just don't really care much about his content like I used to. So let's move on.
Pretty long enough to remove the spell. Both Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle dug a trench to buy some time, and hey, that's actually pretty clever.
Hark my ears and be still my beating heart.
That is actually creepy. I didn't really think about that before, but her neck being extended like that, like a giraffe, is just absolutely like, ugh. I could have done a better job with that.
Did the great and wonderful and sexy GoldenFox just compliment something in this episode?
Shut up. I also complimented that joke earlier, and wait, did you call me sexy?
Anyway.
Again, the two of us are just bouncing off each other in that regard.
This episode was weird, it was strange, and it was occasionally painful. But in the end, I can understand a lot of what Megan McCarthy intended. Out of all the episodes of the 17 Curse, this one is harmless. Both Some Pony to Watch Over Me and the Stairmaster can go fuck themselves. It's at this point relationships...
Yeah, I still can't stand those episodes.
Just like I need to figure out my own confessions to liking Keyframe.
Wait a minute. Did you just say you liked me?
I mean...
I love this moment.
Oh no. Oh god. I'm so sorry, Key. Yes! Yes, I like you. I can't believe I let that slip.
Oh god. Okay, so originally when Keyframe and I were writing the script, originally my character was going to be like, I'm sorry, and he's like, he was going to turn away until she would use her magic to bring me back. But this one, she decided to put in the moment where my character covers himself in the wings until afterwards that she would just open it up and be more upfront with him. I just thought that was a hell of a lot more adorable, and I was like, why didn't I think of that before? So I think this is one of the moments that make me appreciate this review in terms of having the interactions between our characters and how big of a payoff it was.
You haven't heard my piece yet. Is this episode perfect? No, not by a long shot. Would I recommend this to a first-time viewer? Absolutely not. I say for a good first episode, watch Applebuck Season, Pinky Apple Pie, or Too Many Pinkie Pies. And at least try to understand both sides.
So I'm going to pause it here for a second. This is something we both definitely agree on, and that is, for a first-time viewer, we wouldn't want to recommend it because with the cringe humor involved, it would throw some people off, and they wouldn't have as good of an impression and wanted to watch more of the series. But funny enough, somebody commented somewhere, I don't know who it was, they said that this episode is what got them into the show, which I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but it happened. So we're still on the same page. I still agree with her statement there. That being said, let's watch one of the most adorable moments that follows near the end.
Besides, I did do one other great thing, and I think it tops everything else.
Yeah? What's that?
It got me a chance to spend time with you.
Wait, what now?
Foxy, I knew you had a crush on me. I'm a unicorn. I can kind of read these things.
Alright, so I'm going to stop right here and explain another part that some people have been asking me. Like, what do you mean that unicorns can read things? To a degree, I think that unicorns have a very particular level of intelligence because they can work with magic and use their heads to move things around. And in that regard, like, it's not necessarily like mind reading. It's more on the lines of just like they can use their magic and have a closer sense than other pony races involved. That's just a personal theory that I had. You could call it a headcanon, and I think I may have been proven wrong every now and then. It's just an idea that I wanted to play in there because I thought it was just a funny gag. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
This is the most fun I've had a while in a review.
This is like the second time she was in a review, the other which being with Silverquill.
Review together sometime?
Oh, I'm sure you've got projects you want to work on personally, and I don't want to spend too much of your time. And timing is condensed, and we don't want to pressure ourselves. Okay, how about a season 5 episode sometime?
It's a date.
Okay, so yeah, that was based off of the moment from The Hunchback of Notre Dame where Quasimodo was, okay, yeah, so that heart that floats up, that was part of the, that was the addition asset that I put in the remastered review. I love how this is all put together. I'm still proud of that. But yeah, in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo's saying things like, oh, I don't know if I can do such and such, until Esmeralda kisses him on the forehead. Obviously, those two don't get together later in the movie, but I was playing with the idea, so. I love that I was able to put together like a creative a credit scroll. It's been a while since I made this stuff, and I used a bunch of logos to indicate, hey, this is all just part of, you know, just whatever else is going on. So that was the Hearts and Hooves Day review, and yeah, there's a lot of hiccups here and there, and for the most part, like, they don't really like hinder the quality of the review. The only real issue I have is how I could have done a better job with some of the visual assets, and that's mainly because there was bound to be some rookie mistakes. So one other thing I want to point out too is that the end credits scene where I used the guitar cover or mandolin cover from Manapony on Love Me Charlie, originally I used the Beatles' She Loves You. And this was originally split in two parts. The second part, unfortunately, got blocked worldwide, and that irritated the shit out of me. I was so mad about that. So I had to do a re-edit version and replace that track. So this one being just a two-parter as a one video, instead of just making two separate videos, That's one of the things I liked about doing this one, because it's a lot more convenient, and with these additional assets out there, it actually just makes the video much more appropriate. One other thing to add that I felt I could have done a better job on, but even then, like, it's still a bit of an obstacle at the time. And that is, at that time, as you can tell when listening to my vocals, I was pretty restrained on whatever it was that I was expressing. And that is mainly because I was still living at my parents' house, which to many people that just sounds embarrassing. But in actuality, trying to get a job and move out and everything was an obstacle. And until then, I had to be mindful of other people's company, and I was always afraid that if I was too loud, it would draw their attention, and somebody would come in the room and see that I'm in the middle of recording something, and it would just look completely embarrassing and awkward. I had such an insecurity that I had to restrain myself a lot. But aside from that, I still think that this review has held itself pretty decently. I wouldn't say it's one of my best videos, but it definitely was a start that would become a collaborative effort between Keyframe and I. I hope you enjoyed watching this edition of Behind the Wings, and until next time, have a good Valentine's Day / Single Awareness Day.